Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Martin gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the VRRC, where we are beginning a brand new championship. It is the VRRC BMW Cup, and we are here at Belgium's second most famous racetrack, Zolder, for the opening two races of the season. My name is Andy McEwen, and I'm delighted to say that I think you can all hear me now. A couple of little technical issues there at the start of the broadcast, but I'm here and in position, ready to talk you through what should be an exciting qualifying session and should be a very competitive season of racing. And this car that has been a lot of work has been put into to make it as popular as it's already proven to be amongst the drivers. And hopefully it's going to produce some pretty good racing as well. We've got an interesting mix of tracks on the calendar, and yeah, this should be a fascinating season. A big grid as well, lots of new drivers out on track. We've got 25 drivers entered for this season opener at Zolder. 2 races, 25 minutes the duration for both of them. First, the 15-minute qualifying session that will set the grid for the first race. Race 2, as always here at the VRRC, will feature that full reversed grid. So lots of action guaranteed, and already drivers starting to make their way around on the first lap of qualifying. Some familiar names will likely appear at the top, and actually it's fitting in a way that Oliver Gibson is the name that first appears at the top of the timing screens. I know that's only an outlap from the pit lane, really, not a representative lap time, but Oliver Gibson, who in recent times here at the VRRC has become a bit of a BMW specialist, racing BMWs in our touring car championships, while everyone's in a rear-wheel drive BMW in this series, and he is expected to be one of the front runners. Also very excited to have this man back, Scott Bugner, after a bit of a sabbatical, not raced with us for a few seasons now, but great to have Scott back with us. Scott is a former race winner and championship contender in tin tops, granted front-wheel drive cars, more his speciality, at least as far as touring cars were concerned, but we've seen him go well in some GT cars and rear-wheel drive machinery before, so great to have Scott back on the grid. And he is, by the looks of it, racing in the same team as Andy Carroll, because they're very Andy Carroll-y colours on his number 7 machine. Right then, so Andy Carroll, that didn't take long. Scott Bugner turns through the first corner and begins a qualifying lap. We do have Andy Carroll on the grid, and I apologise in advance for the inevitable occasions, plural, where I mix those two up, but Andy Carroll, again, a driver that we expect these days to be running fairly competitively within our VRRC championships. As I mentioned, a couple of new names, though. We've got Thomas Potter up at the top of the times now, setting one of the early benchmarks, 1 minute 40.001. Thomas has done some other sim racing on Assetto Corsa, but relatively new anyway, to the VRRC, and looks as though he's going to be a bit of a pace setter, doesn't he? He's already looking pretty much at home in the BMW 1 Series, or actually the M1 that we're using for this series, the M135i, to give it its proper catchy name, but a car that, as I said, is it is a racing car. It's not a road car that's been sort of adapted into a racing car. It is a full thoroughbred racing car, slick tyres, it drives like a little touring car, and that I think is why the drivers really like it. We've seen our touring car championships have traditionally gone down well here at the VRRC, and no great surprise to hear that the drivers are pretty keen on these cars too. Joel Lask, speaking of people who usually go well in a touring car, he's second quickest at the moment then in the Phoenix sim racing car, making his way through the second of the 3 chicanes on this Zolder layout. It's the first of those chicanes, really, that often is the scene of drama. It's a very, very tight chicane. They're all quite tight, but the first one is quite quick. The faster you go through that first chicane, the more speed you then carry up and over the hill and down into the Villeneuve chicane. And it's a very technically demanding circuit, Zolder, I have to say. I'm quite happy that Jack Oliphant isn't alongside me, actually, for this event, because I always take the mickey out of him for not liking Croft. This is my Croft. It's a track that, on sim racing at least, I've never got on with very well. But it does have the potential to provide some pretty good racing, actually. Lots of big braking zones and technical sections where a bit of a mistake can really liven things up. So hoping that maybe I'll turn into a bit of a Zolder fan by the end of the night. So Joel Lask, fastest at the moment, 139.9, fractionally, and I mean fractionally quicker than Jack Smith, who has gone second quickest at the moment. Third fastest then for Thomas Potter, Craig Curtis fourth, and Andy Carroll completing the top 5. Then it's Chris Blakey, Oliver Gibson, Ben Smith, Kei Kogashiwa, and Paul Laramie are completing the top 10 at the moment, but still a few drivers not to have set fully representative lap times that I would expect to be a bit quicker. Ben Smith in particular down in 17th place. He should move forward from there, I would have thought. Scott Bugner only 21st. Josh Martin only 23rd, having not really set a time yet. So there are a few drivers I think we'll see getting a bit better through the second half of the session, although we're already nearly halfway through this 15-minute session. 15 minutes does go by very quickly. And even though it's not the longest of laps, just over a minute and a half in length, it's still easy to lose track of time in these sessions and run out of time to set a really strong lap time. Got a glimpse there of Jack Smith coming through to complete a lap. He's gone purple in the first sector, but Joel Lask responding to that by going fastest of anybody in sector 2. So Joel Lask and Jack Smith trading sector times at the front, but then neither of them have managed to really string that together into a brilliant lap. Sector 1 for Joel Lask, sector 2 for Jack Smith, not an improvement on their personal best. So let's see what that means by the end of the lap then. Andy Carroll's going to come through momentarily to complete a lap time. Joel Lask went through and did improve, actually. And Jack Smith also improves, but in the end, the positions stay as they were. So Joel Lask and Jack Smith still first and second, respectively. And we'll have to wait and see whether they maybe choose to pit at some point, stick some fresh tyres on their BMW, and maybe go again in the second half of the session. Scott Bugner, 5th quickest at the moment, makes his way through the right-handers that make up the back end of the circuit, then down into the tight little right-hander before they go into the Ocken-Rindt section, and then the Jackie Ix chicane at the end of the lap. And like I said, very technical. There's lots of sort of, I would imagine these cars probably second gear corners through the chicanes and the hairpins and the 90-degree corners, trying to get the traction on corner exit as well. Also worth mentioning, and I promise you I didn't forget about this, that these cars have hybrid systems attached to them as well. So I think it's been a little while since we've spoken about hybrid here at the VRRC, as Scott Bugner got it all wrong there through turn 1, having just jumped into 5th position. Hybrid systems on board these cars, so they produce quite a chunk of extra horsepower actually when they are activated. You can activate it for 10 seconds at a time, and in each race you can activate it 15 times. So 15 times in race 1, 15 times in race 2 for 10 seconds at each time. Each time you've used it, you then have to wait 10 seconds before you can activate it again. It's a 10-second cooldown period afterwards. But that hybrid system on a track like this, for example, with some reasonably long straights and certainly some tight corners out of which you'll be looking for good acceleration, that can probably produce some good side-by-side action. Oliver Gibson onto the front row. So again, perhaps shouldn't be too surprised to see Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson now setting the pace. Two drivers who we've seen go well in rear-wheel drive BMWs before. Joel Lask is 3rd, and Ben Smith with an improvement at last into 4th position. Ben had been languishing down the order a little bit before then. But there is Ben in the sort of traditional BMW Works colours, at least the modern BMW Works livery this. Very similar to that you will see on a British touring car BMW, for example. And Ben Smith, a bit of a revelation over the last couple of seasons, came into our Porsche Championship a number of months back over the winter and was immediately dominant within the Cayman class. And we've seen him since then starting to mix it with some of the regular front runners, but this, I think, possibly the most competitive that he's looked in a sort of single class championship so far. I know it's only the first qualifying session of the season, there's a long way to go, but if you can stick it on the second row of the grid, then that marks him out as a potential race winner, definitely. Gibson here pushing on, personal best sector 1, but the second sector has got away from him, really. Who else is improving? Craig Curtis has a personal best in the second sector going. Here is Josh Martin as well, who's also jumped up the order now from wherever he was, outside of the top 20, but still only 10th quickest. That is about to change, I think, though. He's gone personal best in sectors 1 and 2. Whilst Ben Smith has gone outright fastest in Sector 2 as well. So we'll get Josh Martin across the line and then maybe cut to Ben Smith, because Ben Smith, despite an average first sector, is on course potentially to challenge for pole position still. Josh Martin turns into the final chicane through the left, the right, steeply uphill through that chicane, and then accelerating over the crest on the start-finish straight. 10th place for Josh Martin becomes 7th place for Josh Martin, so a little bit of an improvement, but Ben Smith finds even more and goes to pole. Ben Smith to pole by a little margin as well, a couple of tenths in hand over Jack Smith. good day to be a Smith, and Ben Smith the fastest of the two right now. So purple middle sector, purple final sector. That was a fantastic lap from Ben Smith, and that definitely sets him out as one of the early season favourites, you'd have to say. Craig Curtis up to, he's personal best in the first sector as well. But even as we move into the final few minutes of this qualifying session, a few drivers starting to find a bit of speed. Now, that was quite aggressive on track limits there through the second chicane, the Villeneuve chicane. Whether it was within track limits, I'm not so sure. We'll find out, I suppose, at the end of the lap if the lap counts. Meanwhile, Ben Smith going faster again. Purple in sector 1, fastest of anybody. And he already, with a quarter of a second nearly in hand over the rest of the pack, is looking to try and extend that. Whoever that was behind him was getting very sideways, but Ben Smith won't be worried about that. Accelerates now over the crest of the hill, out towards the Jochen Rindt section of corners. Oh, he's outbraked himself though, misses the apex. He'll carry a decent amount of momentum off the corner, but that definitely will have lost him some time there, Ben Smith. The middle sector isn't great, and I think he's now quite a bit down on his delta. We'll get him to the line anyway, just in case, but that's a shame for Ben. Looked as though he was going to move the goalposts ever further and get even further clear of the rest of the field. Accelerates out of the final corner, crosses the line, and it's not going to be an improvement. I don't think. No, it's not an improvement after that mistake with just a couple of quarters to go. Jack Smith, though, isn't improving either. The second place man, the DK Power liveried BMW, which makes its way up across the timing line as well. As I said, not improving on this lap. He'll have time, though, for 2 more laps if he wants them. And I'm sure he's not going to give in until the checkered flag waves. Not a lot of improvements actually further down the order either, although we did just have an improvement to 11th position for Brad Smith. Ah, yes, I'd forgotten about all the influx of Smiths that we've had in the VRRC. That was confusing me last time I was here, which was a while ago, so I was guaranteed to get confused anyway. But Brad, at the moment, a little bit detached from the other Smiths, 11th fastest, but inching towards the top 10 with every lap. Josh Martin is going quicker as well on this particular lap with a personal best first sector. There he is, hammering over the curbs. And whilst this is going on and Josh Martin is busy throwing away this lap by bouncing too aggressively over the curves, perhaps it's time to turn back to Jack Smith because he's gone purple initially, it showed in sector 1. That's now turned to a green sector. But anyway, it's a quick first sector. And that's because Joel Lask, I believe, has gone fractionally quicker. So Jack Smith second quickest, Joel Lask fourth quickest, both having a late go here at snatching pole position back away from Ben Smith, who is not going quicker out on track at the moment. So Ben Smith looks as though he's shown his hand first, but is he going to be able to hang on to pole position until the checkered flag? Jack Smith inch perfect, as you'd expect, into the tight right-hander. Joel, we're hearing, has lost his lap now due to track limits, so that takes one threat away from Ben Smith, but Jack Smith heads towards the final corners, having done a personal best in the first sector, a personal best in sector 2. And was that maybe a bit deep into the last chicane? It might have been, and that's going to kill his momentum now over the crest of the hill. Jack Smith to the line. Is it enough for pole position? No, it's not. It's an improvement in time, but not ultimately in position. That was a 1:39.455. He's just over a 10th of a second shy, and you have to assume he lost that 10th in the final couple of corners. We are, I think, into the final minute of qualifying. Yes, we are, I believe. The time at the top of my screen a little bit blurry, but we are into the final minute, so 20-odd seconds left of the qualifying section. Josh Martin heads over the crest of the hill on a personal best first sector, actually. Josh could improve on 7th place here. How far is he behind? He's about 2/10 behind Thomas Potter, who's the standout performer, actually, along with Ben Smith, probably, in this qualifying session. Thomas Potter, 6th quickest on, if not his debut at the VRRC, certainly one of his very first races with us. But what Josh Martin... what can he do? He has not improved in that middle sector, unfortunately, which is the second longest of the sectors, I believe. They're all pretty equal, actually, just in excess of 30 seconds. Josh Martin making his way now towards the final chicane. Is this going to be an improvement? It's right on the bubble of being an improvement, looking at his delta. Sends it into that final chicane. That looked all right, actually. The tail kicks out, but that just helped rotate the car, and he accelerates to the line. It might be a fractional improvement, but I doubt it's going to improve upon 7th place. And that is, well, actually, it wasn't even an improvement in the end, fractionally down on his previous best pace. So I think that's more or less it. Most of the quick drivers have seen the checkered flag. There's nobody really improving out there now. So I think a lot of them are probably heading for the pit lane. We will hear from not only our pole sitter, actually, in a few moments' time, we'll hear from our top 3 drivers from qualifying. So Brad Smith, Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson. So stick around for all of their reaction to qualifying and, of course, the first race of the season coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. Qualifying done here at Zolder, and it is Ben Smith on the pole position by, in the end, just over 1/10 of a second there. Right at the end, it looked as though Jack Smith was building a challenge against him, but Ben, in the end, able to hang on to pole position, and he, along with the top 3 from that qualifying session, join us in the commentary box now. We'll start with our third-placed starter. Actually, first, we're going to go 3, 2, 1 and start with Oliver Gibson, who will be starting from the inside of row number 2. And Oliver, pretty tight between all of you guys at the front there, really. Satisfied with third on the grid?
Yeah, I'll take that. It's not really the lap I wanted, but yeah, no, I'll take that. To be honest, I didn't see who was on pole until just now. So I thought Jack was on pole for ages. Turns out not, but mega lap from Ben. I mean, no chance I was beating that, but for myself, I was pretty happy with that lap.
You said that maybe you thought there was a bit more time left on the table. Any particular bit of the track that you're still maybe struggling with a little?
The chicane, I think, and the corner just before that as well. I kept clipping the curbs wrong and running a bit wide here and there, so hopefully I can change that for the race and not get any cuts as well. That would help. So yeah, just those areas really.
Okay, well, Oliver, congratulations. Third on the grid. No points for that, but at least you're towards the pointy end of the grid. Best of luck for race 1, mate.
Thank you.
So Oliver Gibson starting third. As he said there, he thought Jack Smith was on pole, but Jack, sadly, that's not the case. It could have been, though, couldn't it? You were on a good lap there towards the end, and it looked like maybe just a tiny little mistake cost you.
Yeah, no, I think Ben's done a great job to put that lap in. A 39.3 after the track limit changes. It's a really good lap. So yeah, I don't know. I struggled to keep it consistent around here. So I started that last lap and I messed up T1, which I messed up T2. So it was over at T1 really, and I just sort of tried to find something at the exit of T2 and just went wide. So I gave up on that one. But yeah, I think I'm sort of trying to focus on not cutting the chicane, and I think that's sort of doing me over in this track really. But yeah, I tried. But yeah, only a 10th off pole, so it's not too far away for the race.
It's a tricky little track, Zolder, isn't it? And actually interesting what you said there about being overly mindful of track limits. That first chicane in particular, it rewards commitment, doesn't it? But the problem there is that if you overcommit, you cut the chicane, you get yourself in a world of trouble. So it is difficult to find that balance, isn't it, between commitment and aggression and lap time, but then not going too far.
Yeah, and the way the chicane's sort of designed, the first curb can sort of knock you into cutting track limits at the second one, so it doesn't really flow sort of well. You have to really sort of judge it, and you know, if you do one small difference in how you approach the corner, it'll mess up the whole run for the chicane. So yeah, but the middle sector's fun. I do like that sector. It flows quite nicely. But yeah, the first sector where that chicane is, that's my weak point, I think, at this circuit. So yeah, we'll just have to keep it clean in the race and see what we can do. But yeah, congrats to Ben.
Yeah, an excellent lap that was from Ben as well. But I'm sure, Jack, you're thinking championship already, aren't you? I mean, I know Ben's likely going to be a thorn in your side. He won't be the only one, but you know the importance of just banking the points, don't you, early on? So how aggressive, without giving too much away, are you likely to be in this first race?
I mean, it's first round. I think everyone's looking for for the championship at this point in the championship. So I'm just going to see where we end up, what the pace is like, and it's sort of like a sighting round, I guess. You sort of figure out who's got the pace, where people are good. But yeah, I'll certainly try to bag some points today.
Sounds like a plan. Jack Smith, well done. Front row start, not a bad start to the season. Best of luck for the race.
Cheers, Andy.
And finally, our pole sitter, Ben Smith. That wasn't bad. You've certainly managed to attract the congratulations of one of our very best drivers within the championship. In fact, two of them, really. Jack Smith and Oliver Gibson. They don't know how you did it. So I'm going to ask you, how did you do it?
A lot of commitment, I think, is the answer. After that track limit change, I think it's really fine line between cutting and not. So I think I just kept it, but it was definitely tight, and that was probably as best as I could have certainly got out of this.
Yeah, like I said there, commitment is important around here, but you've got to tread that fine line. It's all well and good hooking it up for one lap, though, but how are you going to manage over 25 minutes? Because it does seem like through those chicanes, particularly the first one, if you do make a little mistake, that could really cost you. So are you confident that you can consistently maintain that pace and lead from the front?
I think I can definitely, hopefully keep it in the lines. I mean, Rich will know I'm not exactly famous for keeping it in the lines at times, but this time I'm hoping it will all go to plan.
Well, yes, that would be good. You've done the part of the job now, qualifying on pole position, but what do you think? Is this a signal maybe that you're going to be a real title contender this season?
The rear wheel drive, you can sort of chuck it in, that really suits what I like. So I'm hoping I can stay with the big boys and, you know, put a fight to them.
Well, hey, by the end of the season, you might be one of the big boys, maybe. Certainly, you've started off well. Congratulations on the pole position. Early championship lead as a result as well. Let's see if you can keep it by the end of the race. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Well, then, they were our top three drivers on the grid after qualifying. Now, I should have had an opportunity earlier on to bring in my temporary co-commentator. That doesn't sound very nice, does it? But I guess that's what he is, really. Rich Hayden is on double duty tonight. He's producing the whole show, directing the races, going to be dragging people in and out of the commentary box for interviews as well at times, but also between races going to be here to lend me his thoughts, which we're always happy to hear. So Rich, welcome along. First round of the season, and I'll tell you what, people are up for this, aren't they?
Yeah, good evening everybody. Yeah, I don't know whether I'm coming or going at the moment. Trying to keep my eye on everything that's going on, but yeah, I'm really excited for this. Feedback on the car has been really good from everybody. Not so good feedback on the track, but it's not a well-loved track by yourself and by a few of the drivers, but I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, as a professional commentator, I always tell Jack off for being so blatantly biased against certain tracks like Croft. But yeah, when it comes to Zolder, I'll accept it, quite honestly. It is a tricky track, though, and a lot of drivers, I think every driver in those interviews there referenced track limits, didn't they? So yeah. Tell us a little bit about the journey we've been on with track limits this week.
Well, our usual rules for track limits are the white line is the edge of the track, and that's extended by a painted red and white curb if it's attached to the line. Unfortunately, the Klein chicane was... the only thing I can describe it as is a Dukes of Hazzard moment for most of the drivers. They were leaping the whole chicane by hitting the sausage curb to start with. So I've had to make some changes to the track. We made the track limits a little bit more strict, which has made them slow down for the chicane. Who knew that you could slow down for a chicane? But yeah, so it wasn't well loved by everybody because they were quite looking forward to doing jumps through the race, but you know, sensibility prevailed, and I've made the change. So yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for them, but you know, it needs.
Absolutely, I'm all for making their life more difficult. It makes our lives more entertaining, generally. Easy for me to say from the comfort of the commentary box. Obviously, I don't have to go out on track and drive the cars.
Absolutely.
But the cars, if people aren't enjoying the track, they're certainly enjoying the cars, aren't they? Tell us a bit about the cars. They look pretty much like road-going BMW 1 Series, but they are thoroughbred racers, aren't they?
They are indeed, yeah. So we took the shell of this car, we took out the suspension, the physics, the engine, the gearbox, and we produced our own and put it back in. Eric Axelson's been helping me a lot with this, and we've been doing a lot of testing on it, and the car feels fantastic. So some really good feedback from everybody. I think the best word we've had is it's very chuckable. So so yeah, everybody's technical term for chuckable. That was from Ben Smith, who's on pole, so we know he's enjoying the car.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this. I can't really pick a winner, to be honest, even from this first race, but should be a competitive championship. And lots of new names as well out there. I mean, Ben is not new, but he's sort of really establishing himself now as a regular front runner. But I think over the course of the next eight weeks, Rich, a few others might join him up there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Scott Bugner back after his hiatus away doing his real racing in the MG Cup. But you know, he's come back, and I'm really pleased that he has. So Scott's a really good racer, and he's teamed up with Andy Carroll, as you mentioned earlier, in their new team, which is aptly named Team Car Bug.
I like it. I see what they did there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we've got a few new drivers. Thomas Potter is fairly new to us, so we're really pleased to have Thomas along. He's done a couple of things with us before, but we've got another gentleman from Hungary called Gillian Christian. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. And Olivia Kryzanowska as well. So she's fairly new to us. So a few new people. So hopefully everything's going to go down well.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned Olivia's name, because now if I get it wrong, people can blame you because you said it first. Kryzanowska is what we're going with.
I asked her the question. I said, look, how do you pronounce it? And she sent me a phonetic thing through YouTube, so it's Kryzanowska. So
you just put it into Google Translate, Rich. Don't be trying to fool us. If it all goes wrong, we're blaming Google. That's the plan. Absolutely,
yeah. Anyway, we're 30 seconds to go.
Good stuff. Right, we'll let Rich get back to doing what he does best. Thank you very much. Excellent stuff. He's getting a bit too good at this whole co-commentator thing. I don't think I like it.
I wouldn't say that.
Now and back into the director's booth, because our first race of the season is almost upon us. Ben and Jack Smith on the front row of the grid. Who is going to get the victory in round number 1 of the VRRC BMW Cup? Let's find out. 25 minutes the journey, 15 uses of that hybrid available to everybody. What's going to happen as the lights go out? Now we're away in racing here as Zolder. The cars squat down. That was a brilliant shot. Looking at the back of the cars as they accelerated off the line, and it's a perfect start from Ben Smith. He'll be enjoying the view from the race leader. Dive up the inside from Oliver Gibson for second place, but the inside line at turn 1 can be a treacherous place to be, and indeed it is Jack Smith who hangs on around the outside. So it's Ben Smith that leads, Jack Smith second, Oliver Gibson was third, but Joel Lask, wasting no time in chucking it up the inside, barrels through in true Joel Lask fashion into third place. That was a very committed move on cold tyres. Looked clean, it was a fair move, but Joel Lask knows the importance of trying to get to the front, because it's not going to be the easiest of circuits on which to overtake, I suspect. Looks like Sam Walton might be in the pit lane already. He's got a white mark next to his name, so I think his race has already come undone slightly, but Ben Smith leads them through the chicane and up over the crest of the hill, and he is getting away already. Look at that, 0.8 of a second his lead over Jack Smith in second position as he hits the brakes into the second of those chicanes. I posed the question to him there whether he felt that he had the consistent pace to lead from the front lap after lap. He seemed confident that he did, and so far you would not argue with that, would you? He's got a healthy little lead and he's already starting to pull clear. Joel Lask there, interestingly, using a bit of a hybrid as he heads towards this tight right-hander and trying to close in maybe on Jack Smith. I do enjoy this hybrid tactical game that we have sometimes in VRRC. Certain drivers will use it early, certain drivers will use it late, some will use it to defend, some will use it to attack, and it often means we get comers and goers. We get drivers who really charge through at the start, but they've used lots of hybrid, particularly in the reversed grid race, and then if they don't get all the way to the front, sometimes they can struggle in the second half of the race. But Joel Lask certainly is getting pretty trigger happy with the hybrid at the moment, isn't he? And he's up the outside, I should say, there was he, of Jack Smith. They are side by side for second place, and he might just make that work because he's got the inside line now for turn 2, but Jack Smith turns across in front of him. That nearly ended in contact, but I think they just avoided it, and Jack Smith and Joel Lask doing battle for second position. But this is what I mean about the hybrid. It looks like Joel Lask is way quicker than Jack Smith because he's all over him like a rash. He's alongside. Not often do we see Jack Smith under pressure like this early in the race, but actually it's that hybrid perhaps flattering to deceive slightly. And this might all come back to Jack Smith later in the going. That's not an overtaking place, but it was actually enough to distract Jack Smith. That little look at the inside from Joel Lask just put Jack Smith off his rhythm. And now here he comes back up the inside line into the second chicane. We've got Oliver Gibson joining in the fun as well. Turn through the right, left, right, and it stays the same order. Jack Smith just about in front. So Ben Smith leads by a second and a half now, escaping from all of this out in front. Jack Smith, second position. Joel Lask, third. Gibson, fourth. Josh Martin, fifth. Then Andy Carroll, Thomas Potter, Brad Smith, Scott Bugner and Craig Curtis, your top 10. Round the right-hander, but sideways. That was Carroll. I don't know whether he got tipped into that spin or just lost it on his own. I suspect it was the first of those options. And Andy Carroll, unfortunately, with a half spin, which might have turned into a full rotation, looking at how many positions he's losing. So Andy Carroll in big, big trouble. And he still hasn't really got... Well, there he is. He must have spun all the way around then, Andy Carroll. And he's rejoined behind Dave Heisman, a real-world BMW car club racer. And that means Andy Carroll's out of the top 20 seconds. It didn't look like he was going all the way round when we first cut to that moment, but rear-wheel drive cars, I suppose, that's often the case. You get tapped into a half spin, it's very difficult to gather it back together. So, unfortunately, one of our potential front runners already in trouble, and he will now already, I'm sure, be looking ahead to race number 2, where perhaps have the opportunity to benefit from the reversed grid. Anybody who finishes on the lead lap in this race will be reversed to form the grid for race 2. So if Andy Carroll were to finish 22nd and we had 24 cars on the lead lap, he would start from third and would shortly be a good shout for a race victory. Jack Smith may yet be a good shout for a race victory in this one, though, although he just can't match the pace of Ben Smith. And actually, Jack, in fairness, was saying, wasn't he, in that interview, that he doesn't really know how Ben Smith did that lap time and that he doesn't feel he can go that quickly himself. So Ben is doing something differently, isn't he? He's really got to grips with this car. And Jack Smith, it says a lot when Jack Smith, of all people, can't keep up with you. So Ben Smith will certainly be taking some confidence from that. The real battle, though, is for third place, isn't it? Because Joel Lask, I think, has now inevitably had to start just conserving those hybrids a little bit more, and it means that Oliver Gibson and Josh Martin are right on his tail. Nice to see Josh Martin in the top 5, and looking racy as well. That looked like a bit of a mistake there for Joel Lask, but Oliver Gibson didn't really capitalise on the exit. They're both on the hybrid button as they come past the pits. So is Ben Smith, so he's not resting on his laurels here, using the hybrid to try and extend his margin, which he has now beyond 2 seconds over Jack Smith, who did not use the hybrid down the pit straight. That goes to show just how much time you can gain or lose with that extra little boost available. So round the right hands we go. I can't see on my screen how many hybrids they've got.
Would you like me to update you?
It would be great, Rich Hayden, if you could update me. That's very useful. Are you talking to everyone?
I am, yes. So Brad Smith's got out of his 15, he's got 12 left. Jack's got 13. Joel Lask has used the most so far in the top 5. He's down to 10 left. Oliver's on 12, Josh Martin 13, and Brad Smith on 12, not Ben. So yeah, there's a few people further down the grid that are using a little few more, but yeah, Ben's looking pretty there. He's on 12 usage. Jack's got one more at the moment, but Joel's down to 9 now. 9 activations left.
Yes, and that is... we've seen that from Joel in the past, in fairness, I seem to remember. He does go quite heavy on the hybrid use early on and then just sort of stands his ground. He's a good defensive driver. Really,
yeah, he tries to get track position, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there might be that's... well, it is what he's gone for. He's made some good progress early on, but... whether that's going to hurt him a little bit later on in the race, not so sure. Whilst I've got you, Rich, I don't know if you want to keep talking, but I'm going to make you. Okay. Where are the best places, do you think, to use the hybrid? I'm sure you've done plenty of laps around here in the car as well. Where were you jumping on that one?
So I was, I'm going to say it, I can't remember the corner name and you're going to kill me, but anyway, so I was...
No, it's okay at Zolder, I don't mind with Zolder.
I was using it on the exit of turn 4, so as you're coming onto the back straight, and then on the 2 short straights towards the end of the lap as well, over the finish line. So 3 in one lap I was using.
Right, okay, that's obviously in ideal world if you're trying to overtake somebody, but as far as trying to overtake people, then obviously you do want to try and do it down the long straights, I'd guess. Jack Smith, by the way, suddenly starting to eat back into that advantage of Ben Smith's. Now, I wonder if that's because I wonder if Jack's been using the hybrid a bit more, because that was over 2 seconds at one point, I'm sure it was, and it's just started creeping down now, which perhaps brings me to another question, Rich.
Yeah.
How mindful do they have to be of tyre management? We're not even 10 minutes into the race yet, but we are seeing a bit of an ebb and flow to people's pace. And I can imagine with all these traction zones, quite easy to overheat rear tyres.
Yeah, so we did a lot of work on the tyres. So you've got, over the course of the 25-minute race, you are seeing just a gradual drop off. So the car is definitely slippier towards the end of the race, but still very controllable. So we're probably going to see a little bit more of the back end coming out in the last 5 minutes of the race, but still enough grip there not to worry the drivers too much.
Right, okay, so maybe not tyre wear as such. Perhaps it was just a mistake from Ben Smith, but he's regrouping nicely. Already the gap up to 1.8 seconds, and as he gets away, Joel Lask is getting closer now to Jack Smith again. So Joel Lask, they all use the hybrid coming out of that final corner, accelerating uphill, but Joel Lask with a bit of a slipstream, looking to try and have a go maybe into turn one. He's tried it a couple of times into the first corner, both on the outside and the inside. This time, though, stays in the wheel tracks of the second place man. And this battle to be best of the rest, really, behind Ben Smith, doesn't look likely to stop anytime soon. But even I can see that Joel Lask is in single digits so far as hybrids available are concerned, whereas Jack Smith has a number more. Right, further back, this is the battle for 6th position then, which means that it's Brad Smith versus Scott Bugner. So, Rich, Scott hasn't wasted any time, has he? He's straight back on the pace and battling away inside the top 10.
Yeah, he's doing well, isn't he? And couldn't ago. So, you know, these guys have had, the practice server went live a week ago, so most people have had a good week, and Scott's literally had a couple of days, so he's doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm no doubting that he's a talented driver, isn't he? And taking to this pretty well, could steal 6th place here before the end of the race. Again, lots of curb taken on the inside there into the Villeneuve chicane. And then this right-hander that is probably nearly flat out, if not completely flat out in these cars. It certainly looked like Bugner was flat out because he closed in noticeably on Brad Smith there.
Yeah, that's another good place to use the hybrid out of the previous 2 corners going into the hairpin as well.
Yeah, well, tried it. Couldn't quite get to the inside. The inside line defended by Brad Smith. Scott couldn't go to the outside, but he's clearly the quicker of the 2. He's going to try and force a defensive move out of Brad Smith into the final chicane, which might give Scott the better run up the hill. Phoenix Sim Racing driver will be a bit slower off the turn, but the trouble is you run wide out of the chicane, and then that naturally puts you on the defensive line into turn number 1. They're both on the hybrid, but as they pass the pits, and Brad Smith will just about hang on to the position, drifts a bit wide over the exit curb, but no way through yet for Scott Bugner. Now this looks entertaining. This is Thomas Potter trying to move up from 10th position. Chris Blakey and Craig Curtis ahead, and there's contact, and Blakey goes around, and Thomas Potter, in fairness, waits for him to make sure that he doesn't benefit from that spin, but Craig Curtis always struggling to get back on the track, and I think Thomas Potter might just have to go and accept his punishment later on. Lee Piercy's off now. I think that might have been, there's another car off around the right hand, and that was, oh, it was, yes, you're right. So it's absolute carnage. 3 cars off. Potter's been off the road as well again. That was a bit bizarre, Rich.
Yeah, that was quite strange. I didn't quite see what happened, but it looks like they probably had some contacts going into the corner, I think.
Detective Hayden figuring out what happened there. I think, yeah, there was definitely some contact, but then it just seemed to be a knock-on effect, didn't there, which affected a number of drivers. Anyway, that will all get looked at, I'm sure, post-race by the steward, who will make a decision on who deserves penalties, if anyone. Meanwhile, Scott Bugner still trying to find a way past Brad Smith for 6th position. They're some way detached from the top 5, but this is really the best battle inside the top 10 after it all kicked off behind them. Into the top 10, though, have now come Nathan Smith, 9th, and Adam Lyall into the top 10 as well, now in 10th position as a result of some of the shenanigans around the first corner. There is Nathan Smith, the 4th Smith, who is in 9th position at the moment and doing pretty well, Rich.
Yeah, it looks like both the Smiths seem to be getting to grips. Matt's down at the bottom of the pack at the moment, but his practice times were better than that, I have to say. So whether he's had an incident, but it looks like Adam Lyall's got him on the hybrid here.
Yeah, up the inside into turn 1. As long as he stops the car, he should be able to make that move stick. Oh, there's a car off ahead. That's a lap
Brad.
car, is it?
That's Brad.
Oh, it's Brad. Oh, no. So Brad Smith. So Scott Bugner is in 6th position, and Brad Smith drops down between them. Behind the pair of them, a big slide for Nathan as well. So it looks like they are really rear grip limited at the moment. I'm seeing more and more cars getting sideways. And of course, true in real life, but certainly in Assetto Corsa with their tyre physics, the more you slide the car, the more the tyres overheat, and then the more you slide the car. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of one of the things about this. If they are sliding the back end of the car, the rear tyres will overheat and they'll just lose more grip and slide more and lose more grip.
Yeah, so that perhaps is what's happening to Brad after that spin, but Nathan himself was getting very sideways as well, the car wriggling around in the braking zone for the Villeneuve chicane. But as they head out of that part of the circuit, staying ahead, there's Olivier Kusnowska, who is just ahead of Andy Carroll, who is further down the order than I perhaps expected him to be. Andy Carroll only 14th at the moment. Oh, he did have that spin, you're absolutely right. I forgot about that. Down at this corner, actually, wasn't it, where he got turned around in the early stages. Closing in on these two, though, as you'd expect. So actually, yeah, Carroll was, 22nd, 23rd after that spin. 14th place at the moment, and perhaps about to convert that into 13th. He's got a run on Olivia as he heads towards the final corner. No need for hybrid, just had much better traction out of the corner. And he's going to look to the inside line. Much later on the brakes, manages to slip through. So Andy Carroll up to 13th. Kei Kogashiwa will be his next victim. And then a couple of seconds up the road to Craig Curtis. There's a bit of shuffling going on around the back end of the top 10, though. Adam Lyall up into 8th position now. I think he's managed to get up past both of the Smiths. So Brad Smith 9th, Nathan Smith 10th, and now someone else joining in the battle. That was Craig Curtis, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it looks like it. I think he lost the back end of the car as well by the looks of it. I think they're really it's starting to show who's put the laps in and who hasn't, I think, in doing full race distances.
Yeah, now Adam Lyall, remind me, Rich, how much has he done with us? Because he's not a name that's been with us for a while, that much I do know.
No, he's fairly new. So he did the last championship with us, and he also did a couple of rounds of the World Endurance League. Ooh. That's somebody off in the background. That's Nathan, I think.
Yeah, Nathan and Brad, and I think maybe Craig Curtis involved in that. So Curtis goes 10th. Brad Smith it's Nathan Smith has dropped down, isn't Nathan Smith down to 13th? Sorry, Rich, go on.
No, I was just saying it was Adam, wasn't it? Yeah, so Adam's fairly new. He's part of Phoenix. Really nice guy, and has got a lot of experience on iRacing, and so really getting to grips with Assetto, and hopefully he's enjoying it.
Excellent. So moved over to the superior sim. I'm sure you would have that opinion, but
obviously.
Going quickly, no comment. Going quickly is Adam Lyall, 8th position at the moment, and he's actually one of the loneliest drivers all of a sudden on the grid because the Smiths, whatever happened to them through that first couple of corners, it's dropped them well back now from him. Right, Scott Bugner was 6th because he managed to gain that place, didn't he, past one of the other Smiths. He's now back down to 7th. Chris Blakey has found a way past him as he has
we missed
lap.
that.
Scott Bugner.
No.
He didn't have a mistake on the last lap, did he? Must have been before that, Rich.
It was a second and a half slower than Chris on the last lap.
Okay, and he's 1.1 seconds back now, so he just had a moment somewhere then, did Scott Bugner. But that suggests that Chris Blakey wasn't that far behind him anyway, so Chris Blakey going pretty rapidly in this one. Andy Carroll, would you believe, is into the top 10. So I don't know if we're doing a Driver of the Round award for this series,
we are.
Rich, but if we were, Andy Carroll, an early candidate, I'd say. This has been a brilliant fight back.
I think so, yeah. He's doing a really good job of getting back through the field, isn't he? It's just unfortunate that he was, when we didn't see what happened, whether he spun himself or somebody turned him around, but yeah, he's doing really well.
Well, I think he was somewhere like 7th or 8th at the time, so he's not actually that far back from where he was when he had the spin, and he might well turn this 10th place into 9th place shortly because Craig Curtis is in his sights and he's definitely catching Craig over this last lap or so. Nathan Smith in behind. Kogashiwa's just gone ahead of Thomas Potter for 12th position, so that's a bit of a shame that Thomas had that tangle earlier on because he was pretty much better than that, but 13th place and learning a lot, I'm sure, from this race. Is it Thomas' first race with us at VRRC? No. Sorry. There's an Oscar into him, and then Brad Smith. Oh, Lee Smith. Brad Smith ends up collecting them as well. Krasnowska is around. That was all a little bit messy. Blakey and Bugner battling away as well, and that's going to be a good switchback manoeuvre, I think, from Scott Bugner. That's the outside line now for turn 2. Can he go right round the outside, or maybe try another switchback? Because the next few corners are also right-handers. He's going to go right round the outside. Terrific driving from Scott Bugner. It's like he's never been away. He might not have made the move stick yet, though, because Chris Blakey's still got an overlap, still got the inside line.
Should
Brilliant
get him.
racing that from Chris Blakey.
Chris on the hybrid.
On for now.
Yeah, Chris is straight on. Chris Blakey's straight on the hybrid.
Oh, but Bugner is still getting alongside, interestingly. So he had more momentum off the corner. Outside line, though, is not the place to be into the chicane. That was brilliant racecraft. When you talk to drivers in the post-race debriefs, I'm sure that's exactly the kind of racing that you want to demonstrate for them, because that was clean. It was really, they were both courteous and sort of very aware of where the other driver was. Didn't see any contact. A brilliant example of side-by-side racing, Rich.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's almost like they listen to me when we do the debriefs, isn't it?
Surely not.
So
anyone who would do that, Rich, I absolutely no idea what you're on about. No, I think you're absolutely right. That was brilliant racing, and yeah, again, these are two drivers. Okay, Bugner's been away for a while, but they're two drivers that have raced with us for a while now at the VRRC. So that is part of the idea of the VRRC community, isn't it? You're not just here to race and compete against each other, but learn from each other and become better all-round drivers.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And these guys, as we know, are real-life drivers as well. Chris driving in the BMW CCR Championship and Scott in the MG Cup. So, you know, they've got plenty of experience in real cars, and they're transferring it across their racecraft, transferring it across to our racing online as well.
Yeah, and Chris Blakey, I'd forgotten it was the BMWs that he raced in, so should be feeling right at home now in the BMW M1, but hanging on to 6th position for the time being. We're racing towards the end of the race now, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. It's flown by, this one. We're into the final. There's that 6 minutes left now on the clock, and Ben Smith continues to lead by 3.5 seconds or so now over Jack Smith second, Oliver Gibson third. You're not missing anything out in front because they're all pretty well spaced out at the head of the field. Scott Bugner, on the timing screen, ahead of Chris Blakey, just as we cut away, and
exactly.
Chris looks like he's had a moment somewhere.
Yeah, it does look like that. It's typical, isn't it? Just as I cut away to somebody else, it looks like something's happened.
Yeah, see, this is the mistake now of giving Rich a microphone during these races whilst directing, because he probably complains about all this stuff happening anyway. We just don't get to hear it. But the difficult life of a director, hey, it's not as easy as it looks, is it, Rich?
It's a walk in the park.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right, side by side here, Kenny Press is going up the inside of Krasnowska now. Shame, really, for Olivia. Her race has unravelled a little bit, although she gets the place straight back again because Kenny couldn't keep the car on the line coming out of turn 4, that is, onto the back straight. And actually, that loss of momentum from dipping 2 wheels in the gravel is going to allow Dave Heisman to sail around the outside as well. So one of the most experienced racers here at the VRRC, and Kenny Press, certainly as far as number of races entered is concerned, losing out to one of the least experienced and actually now gaining a place because Krasnowska's had a moment at the chicane. So we kind of expected this, really, especially for the less experienced drivers. It is one of those tracks where you'll have a couple of good laps, you'll gain some places, and then one mistake, Rich, it can cost you so much. Yeah,
it can be quite a tricky little circuit, to be honest with you. And obviously with the change to the track limits at the Klein chicane as well, they've got to be so careful. So yeah, it's I think they've, a lot of people are just getting used to these cars. I have to say, it looks to me like the people that have put in a number of laps in practice are not losing control of their car as much as the guys that have done less laps. So there's something to be said for putting the practice in, hey?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. I mean, it can be difficult.
Do you want an update on hybrids?
Love one, Rich. Go for it.
So the top 3 have all got 4 left. Joel Lask on 4th place has got 2 left. Josh Martin 4, Scott Bugner 4, Chris Blakey 3, Andy Carroll 5 activations left.
Wow! Despite all of the overtaking he's been doing.
Indeed, indeed, he's doing well.
Yes, indeed. Now, Josh Martin has just gone ahead of Joel Lask, according to the timing tower. So Josh Martin changed for 4th, although they're side by side coming out of the right-hander towards the chicane. This has got trouble written all over it, hasn't it? Martin's going to have the inside line for the first bit of the chicane, but Lask will have the inside for the second bit of the chicane. And if he stands his ground through the left, might still come out of this on top. But Josh Martin having none of it. There's almost still an overlap, but Josh Martin goes through. This is much more like it from Josh Martin, getting his elbows out up into 4th place, but Joel is on the hybrid. You can see the effect that's having. He tried to go to the outside, then cut back to the inside. Brilliant racecraft, just about got there in time, and Joel Lask sails through into 4th position. He's too wide, he's in the gravel. That bogs the car down, and Josh Martin gets back alongside. Surely can't go right round the outside at turn 2. They almost lean on each other, but not quite. Again, a brilliant example of fantastic side-by-side racecraft, and Josh Martin goes through. That was fantastic, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these guys are such good racers, you know, so clean, both of them. So, you know, they've both come on absolutely leaps and bounds over the numerous championships they've both done with us. So, full respect to them both for keeping it clean there.
I mean, that little dummy move that Joel Lask made down the pit straight, that was very exciting, but he just couldn't quite get the car stopped into turn 1, and got 2 wheels in the gravel. He's on the hybrid again. This is his last available use of the hybrid. Wants to make it count. He's on the inside line. Josh Martin's turning in. Oh, there's a bit of a rub. In the end, no harm, no foul, I guess, because Josh Martin hangs on. But that was a bit of desperation, I think, there, Rich. That was Joel's last hybrid use, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he knew he had to make it count.
Yeah, that's right. He's down to 0 now. Josh has still got 2 left. The top 3 are on 3 activations left. Scott Bugner's on 2. Chris Blakey on 1. Andy Carroll still got 3. But he's, I mean, look, Andy Carroll's 15 seconds behind Chris, so you know he's gonna do well to get forward from where he is.
Definitely driver of the race though for me so far, Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
To still have any hybrids left at this stage shows that he's not just been sort of on the attack and using the hybrids past people, but he's been reading situations, picking people off in other ways. That's really smart driving, as you would expect, really, from Andy Carroll, to be honest. Josh Martin on the hybrid now, trying to pull away from Joel Lask and make this 4th place his own.
Do you remember this guy?
Exactly, I was going to say that. Ben Smith, I mean, this is remarkable, Rich. We know what a talent he is. He did this time and again in the Caymans, didn't he? But to do it in a one-make championship with this many cars and this many competitive drivers on the grid, at this kind of a track, which has been catching very experienced drivers out, this is mightily impressive and ominous, I would say, for the rest of the grid.
I think Jack and Oliver have got something to think about.
Well, definitely. I mean, they don't have an answer right now, do they?
No, for sure. I mean, look, you know, we know he was super quick in the Caymans in the Porsche Championship. You know, he should have been in the 992 class. That was his first championship with us, and he just wanted to feel it out and stuff. You know, as we know, you know, you and Jack were bored of interviewing him by the end of the championship. But no, very impressive, and showboating a little bit there coming out of the hairpin.
Well, part of the reason we were bored of interviewing him is he was winning by such a big margin. There wasn't really anything to ask him about. And unfortunately, we're going to have the same problem here because he's 4 seconds off. When was the last time somebody drove away from Jack Smith to the tune of 4 seconds? I mean, he's got 1 more lap to go as well.
Is he going to slow, or is he going to take the...
I don't know. Why would he? He's enjoying himself, isn't he? He could keep going all day. With 2 seconds left on the clock, he crosses the line and gets to do a victory lap.
I think... Yeah, no, we're on the last lap. Yeah. So I was thinking, did he cross the line and get the checker? But no, this is the last lap. But yeah, fantastic racing from Ben. Well done.
Yeah, well, not much racing, honestly. He looked like he had to defend a little bit in the early stages, but really not a lot. And once he got into the rhythm, he has been untouchable. Since I mentioned that he was 4 seconds clear of Jack Smith, he's taken another 3/10 out of him. 4.3, 4.4 now the margin, actually, heading onto the back straight. So it looks as though it's going to be the same top 3 as we had on the grid. Ben Smith, Jack Smith, Oliver Gibson. Josh Martin, though, one of the stars of the show for me, moving up to 4th position. And definitely Andy Carroll. Wouldn't mind trying to catch up with them maybe between races as well. We'll try and do that. That's, that'd be good. Are they both on the list of drivers willing to chat to us, Rich?
Andy Carroll is. Who was the other one?
Josh.
Josh is as well, yes.
Oh, I figured Josh probably would be. Ben, don't throw it away now on the last lap. The showboating and Hender's taking the mickey. And that nearly went wrong. That would have been quite embarrassing. I've seen people do it before.
Yeah.
I've done it before, if I'm honest. So Ben Smith just reining it in for the last few corners. He's got a lapped car ahead that I don't think he's quite going to catch. But this has been a superb drive from Ben Smith. Qualified on pole position by, in the end, just over 1/10 of a second, but he has had more than 1/10 of a second in hand per lap over Jack Smith through the race. He's romped clear, he's led every single lap, and Ben Smith is going to get what I believe will be his first ever outright victory here at the VRRC to win round 1 of the VRRC BMW Cup in dominant fashion. Jack Smith comes home in 2nd position, and Oliver Gibson 3rd. DK Power getting 2 cars on the podium then. but in the end, nowhere near the race leader. And then look at the gap they had back to Josh Martin. Yes, Josh had his fair share of battles in this race, but fourth place is still a good result for Josh anyway, even if it is some way adrift of the top three. Josh Martin fourth, Joel Lask comes home in fifth and Scott Buckner on his return in sixth position. Chris Blakey will be seventh, Andy Carroll eighth, Craig Curtis ninth, and Thomas Potter looks as though he's going to get a top 10, but I suspect may have to have a chat with Rich Hayden about that incident he had earlier on, but we'll let him enjoy the top 10 for the time being. Across the line goes Andy Carroll. What a fight back that was. 8th position from 22nd at one point in that race after an early spin, and he more or less got back to where he started. That was phenomenal stuff. A lot of overtaking done by Andy Carroll in that race. 0 overtaking done by Ben Smith, but he will have a lot more overtaking to do in race number 2, which is coming up in just a few minutes' time. But before that, we will catch up with our podium finishers on the other side of this break.
Okay, you're live.
Welcome back, everybody. Race 1 done here at Zolder, and, well, very familiar field to our top 3, really, because it's exactly the same top 3 drivers that we interviewed before the race, and they finish in the same positions after the race as well. To be honest, these might be quite short interviews because none of them had a particularly eventful race. All of the action was happening behind the top 3, but we'll give it a go, and we'll start with our third place finisher, Oliver Gibson, who... Oliver started third, finished on the podium at the end of the race. I said that it was fairly uneventful. That's probably not fair. I'm sure from behind the wheel it was pretty intense. It's a difficult track, this, as we discussed earlier on. And you did have a little bit of battling in the early stages, didn't you?
Yeah. I messed up my start, so that's always a... get it out of the way in round 1, I guess. But, yeah, so I missed a gear. Well, not really missed it, just sort of too late into it. So I bogged down, and then Joel got past, and I was like, "Oh, this could be a long race." And then we're just so close. Me, Joel, and Jack. Just I couldn't. If I went for a move on Joel, I'd be into Jack. So I just waited and found a moment. He made a mistake into the, I don't know what it's called, but the really tight chicane, and pushed a pass, went past, and after that it was, like you say, pretty uneventful.
Which is not a bad way to start a season, I suppose. I mean, it's better than a really stressful race that all goes wrong and you end up at the back. So, you know, at least some points are banked. What are you thinking now about race 2, though? Because you are going to be starting towards the back. We saw quite a bit of chaos behind you. I hate to warn you of that, but there was a fair bit of contact and action in the midfield, and you've now got to somehow pick your way through that.
Yeah, I looked in my mirror on lap 1 and I saw someone go off at the chicane, so I thought that's going to be a fun race too. But I'm hoping that it's not like what you said, the not an ideal first race would be, of being a stressful, stress-filled, contact-filled race. But I think that might be what I'm in for. So I'm just going to try my best. If there's a gap in front, I'll try and follow it and see if I can stay out of trouble.
Excellent. Well, we wish you the very best of luck with that, Oliver. Well done on the podium. A solid start to the season, and hopefully you can back that up with a good race too.
Thank you.
Oliver Gibson, third place then. His DK Power BMW teammates, I know they're all in BMWs this time, Jack Smith came home in second place. And Jack, you said you didn't have an answer for Ben in qualifying, and that translated pretty much into the race as well, didn't it?
Yeah, I didn't have the legs on him, really. And I'm running a bit of ballast, and especially last race, I just miscalculated the fuel by a handful of litres, to put it mildly. But yeah, I've adjusted that for this race. I'm seeing if that's going to make a difference. But yeah, I just didn't have the legs to catch up on the last one. He's got such good exits out of everywhere. I just can't really keep up with it. So yeah, we're gonna see what we can do in race here if we get through the traffic and weave our way nearer towards the front of the field, I think.
Okay. So your car was heavier than his. It was heavier than it was supposed to be because of the fuel. But now you're going to be starting one place ahead of him on the grid. And the one thing you do have perhaps over Ben is a lot more experience of these reverse grids. You know how hectic they can be. And do you think that maybe that puts you in a position of advantage where you can maybe place your car better and read the situation better?
I mean, maybe, but I'm not too sure how much racing Ben's done, if I'm honest. So Ben could be more of a pro than I am, if I'm honest. we'll find out in this race, but yeah, I'm sure it would be good. And just need to get the launch, because I think Ben had a better launch last race as well. So if he gets a better launch, then it's game over straight away. So needs to get that nailed. But fuel-wise, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference, because it was only like 8-9 liters, so it's not a huge amount. So I'm not expecting like to find a second magically. So yeah, I'm sure I'll try and find some more pace. I feel a bit more confident now with the chicane. So yeah, especially in race trim as well, it's a bit different to quality fuel. So gonna see what I can do in this race.
And you did hear that correctly, everyone at home. That was a racing driver swerving an opportunity to use a racing driver's excuse. I commend you for that.
I'm saving it. I'm saving it.
I thought
in the bank. It's in the bank. I got two next round.
Excellent stuff, Jack. Well done. Second place then. Best of luck for race number 2.
Cheers, Andy.
So Jack Smith then with second place. Well, I'll tell you what then. You're getting all the compliments tonight. At least I think they're compliments. They can't keep up with you. And I said to Rich during that race, I can't remember the last time someone gapped Jack Smith by 4 seconds in a race. That is pretty impressive. You must be happy. It's probably a silly question, but you must be pretty happy with how that went.
Oh, that was great. This car, this track, it's just so much fun. I'm absolutely loving this.
The first person ever to enjoy racing at Zolder, I suspect. But yeah, you did have all your own way really in the clean air. But now with the reverse grid, I was mentioning it there to Jack and Oliver, it's gonna be a bit hectic, isn't it? How much of your chances of getting a good result in race 2 now comes down to luck, and how much of it comes down to your racecraft, which we're really gonna see on display here?
Lap 1, 100% luck. After that, maybe the racecraft comes into play, but we'll soon find out. I saw in my mirrors a slight bit of carnage, like I heard you saying to Jack, but yeah, we'll just see how this goes.
Well, yes, that's about as optimistic as you can be, really, I think. But again, good points in the bank. And I mentioned earlier on, you're probably thinking, yeah, okay, I could be a championship contender here. But we've always said here at the VRRC, championships are won and lost on the reversed grid races. So there is some pressure on this. If you weren't feeling the pressure, I'm sorry, I'm going to try and pile it on if I can. But there is some pressure to try and at least stay with the likes of Jack and Oliver in these reverse grid races, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I just need to get a good start again like I did last time, and hopefully just follow them if I can and let them pick through and even get into some contact so I can sneak on past. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Good stuff. We'll let you go and finish your preparations then. Congratulations on the race victory. Pretty perfect week so far, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Right then, that is our top 3 interviews done, but we're going to have the opportunity to chat to a couple of other drivers, I believe, in the meantime. Rich, who have you got for us?
Should we have a chat with Andy Carroll?
Let's do that.
Mr. Carroll.
I thought you were going to have a
Hi, Andy. So, I mean, look, the reason why we brought you in is we want to know what happened. Were you, fairly high up after qualifying, and then you took a spin, and then had a really good fight back?
Yeah, I think young Mr. Potter was on boost and took his normal braking point, which took him straight into the back of me.
Right.
Spun me out at possibly the worst point on the track. So I literally had to wait for almost the entire field to go by before I could get back on the track. Yeah, it was luckily my mic was on mute at that point. But yeah, a bit frustrating, obviously, having been up in the top 6 there, and yeah, I think I had decent pace, and I probably hope, well, apart from the possibility of collisions, etc., I think I probably would have been pushing for a top 4 or top 6, top 5 certainly. But yeah, obviously, yeah, just had to then get my head down and try and get back. It was a question of, do I just sort of trundle around the back and have a good position for race 2? But I thought, no, I'll just see how far up the grid I can can make it again. And yeah, I was quite happy to get back into the top 10. So,
well, it was an impressive drive back, mate. We have to say, we were talking about you coming back through. So hopefully you have better luck in the next race. We'll let you get back to your race prep, and
thank you.
I think we'll have a quick chat with your new teammate Scott Bugner.
Yeah, tell him not to drive into the back of me at the start.
Scott, how are you? Are you there, Scott?
As it's been that long, he's forgotten how to do this.
He's not got his
Scott,
microphone.
are you with us?
Well,
that was a good idea, wasn't
No,
it?
it was a good idea. Oh, look, we're down to a minute and a half before the start of the race, so we'll move Scott back and let him carry on with his prep.
Yes. Okay. Well, good effort, Rich. 10 out of 10 for effort. We'll try again next time, maybe. But yeah, it would have been nice to hear from Scott. You never know, though. He could end up on the podium anyway after this race, and hopefully then remembers to leave his microphone on. Right then, we've got a reversed grid. We have got John Jones and Adam Lyall at the front. Now, Lyall, Rich, was in the top 10, was he not, at one point?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Race 1. So
Yeah.
what do you reckon? Is he a tip for, I mean, at least a podium surely should be on for him?
I know his performance in iRacing events that he races in, and he's a very quick driver. So the one thing that Adam did had to do was get used to the differences between iRacing and Assetto Corsa, which I think he's getting a hold of now. So yeah, I'd expect him to be strong.
Yeah, well, he's certainly got a good grid position to start from. Sam Milner, Lee Piercy, row 2, Krasnowska and Heisman, row 3. Then it's Kenny Press and Christian on row 4, with Nathan Smith, another perhaps to watch for, and Paul Laramie completing the top 10. You have to go all the way down to 19th to find Oliver Gibson, 20th to find Jack Smith, and 21st for Brad Smith. Kei Kogashiwa, didn't see what happened to Kei, but he ended up a lap down at least, so wasn't involved in the reverse grid shuffle. And Mark Stokes likewise in 23rd position. Everybody else is fully inverted, not literally, although there might be in a few seconds when they get to turn 1, because it's going to be quite a lively start, I think, to this second race of the evening. And the red lights are on. John Jones on pole position, with Adam Lyall keen to try and get into the lead as soon as he can, actually, and pull away at the front. The lights are out, away they go. Oh, brilliant livery on John Jones' car. I think that's the first time I've seen that livery up close, and a brilliant launch, actually. He leads into turn 1. Here's the carnage. That was Heisman sideways into the wall. They all arrive pointing the wrong way, and it's going to be a bit of carnage, I think, at turn 1. Lee Piercy, that was pointing backwards. Actually, not as many other drivers got involved in that as I feared. It could have been a lot worse. Someone else was a bit wide in the background there at turn number 2, but hopefully we'll be able to pick their way back onto the track. It is John Jones who leads the way. It is Adam Lyall still second position, so Lyall not yet able to find a way through, but he's got to run out of turn number 4, pulls alongside, outside line into the chicane, both on the hybrid. They're banging door mirrors. Can he go right round the outside of John Jones, who is famously difficult to overtake and continues to be difficult to overtake, and quite rightly so. He's fully entitled to defend the race lead, and Adam Lyall, Rich, cannot find a way through.
No, that was typical John Jones for you, difficult to pass. Yeah, I mean, this is setting itself up for quite a good start to the race.
It is indeed. Nathan Smith, who I also thought might be a contender, is a contender in third place. Lyall nipping up the inside. Down goes Jones. Lyall off the road, and Nathan Smith inherits the lead. John Jones is back on the road. Just about stops in time. Oh, this is heart-stopping stuff for those coming through behind. He spins it back around. And Rich, we've only seen it once. We've only seen it from the external view. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'll reserve judgment till I've watched the replay.
It's awfully comfortable, Rich.
You can't ask the clerk to comment on something live.
Hey, I'm only part-time in it at the moment. I can say what I like. Right then, 23 and a quarter minutes to go, and the first lap in the books with Nathan Smith and Dave Heisman. I'm sure Heisman was backwards. I know he wasn't backwards, but he was ricocheting off the barrier going into the first corner. Anyway, managed to survive it, and here he's in second place, Rich.
Yeah, so I didn't quite see it. I think he must have managed to spin around everyone, maybe. I didn't quite catch it, but yeah, he's sat there quite nicely in second place with Nathan leading the way.
Well, actually, he didn't go backwards now I think about it. He was bouncing off the wall on
right.
the inside. He was the first one tapped sideways.
He got squeezed then.
Him up. It was, it was Lee Piercy who had the spin. He is down in 19th place. Right, what of our front runners from race 1, I hear you ask? Well, we've got, where are they? Jack Smith 15th, Oliver Gibson 16th, And would you look at that, Rich? Well, he's right in the middle of a whole world of trouble heading for the chicane, but Ben Smith making more progress than the other two.
Yeah, he's managing to pick his way through the field quite nicely. Oh, look, they're all managing to get through the chicane without jumping it. Isn't that nice? So.
There are 22 and a quarter minutes of this race left, Rich. There is plenty of time still for to catch people out. But, I mean, it is a difficult place to go side by side. The trouble is, you don't... Oh, that's Carroll. That's Carroll around. No, it wasn't. It was Bruckner, sorry. I knew I'd do that. Scott Bruckner around at the second chicane. Didn't see the tangle, but you have to assume there was a bit of a tangle there. But the point I was starting to make there, Rich, is that in race one, you pick and choose your moments to overtake. And you might go into a place like that first chicane and think, it's a low percentage move to go side by side through here. I'm going to back off and wait for another opportunity. Race 2, you don't get a say in the matter, do you? You've just got to go where they're not.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you know, we're flipping the grid and putting all the fast drivers at the back, you know, so they are going to, despite my many conversations with them to say you can't win the race on the first corner, they all want to get through to the front as quickly as possible, you know, so, you know, these reverse grids always throw up some interesting results, but look, you know, you've got Joel and Ben there, Joel in 9th, Ben in 10th.
Yes, that's good point. Someone sideways. That was Lyall again, I think, in the background. His race has really unravelled, hasn't it? Nice move up the inside there at turn 2. Jack Smith, meanwhile, behind Oliver Gibson still, interestingly, as well. So Gibson making, well, not making better progress than Smith. I suppose he started one place ahead. He is still one place ahead, but neither of them yet troubling the top 10, whilst Ben Smith is into 9th position at the moment. So going to be interesting to see what their progress is like through the second half of the race, Rick. But so far, the early stages, really, that first lap is where you can, you know, gain a chunk of places, and it just hasn't really happened. Who was that? That was Milner, wasn't it?
Sam Milner, yeah.
Another great livery. I do like the retro touring car liveries. I suppose we're asking for it, really, using BMW tin tops, but that was the old Labatt's livery, I think, wasn't it, on the Sam Milner car. Unfortunately, he's been turned around and dropped to the back of the field, but a lot of work goes into the liveries, don't they? I know some of the drivers do them themselves, but not always. They all look fantastic.
Yeah, so as part of being a member for VRRC, we will produce a livery for you, and they're all done by Kenny Press, one of our drivers, and he does a fantastic job on them. You know, he spends so much time putting these liveries together for us, but you know, the drivers can do their own as well.
Kenny Press, who by the way is still in 3rd place. Oh no, that's Josh Martin. That's Josh Martin in the barriers, tangling with Craig Curtis.
Yeah.
I didn't see how that started.
No.
I think there might have been 3 abreast, and you really can't do that. There was a bit of a squeeze. Martin very lucky to get away with that, actually. He dropped a few places into 12th, but Craig Curtis, Rich, definitely came out of that the worst.
Yeah, he's going to have quite a bit of damage from that, I should imagine. He went nose into the barriers, so I imagine he's going to get some hero damage from that, plus probably some suspension damage potentially as well.
That is a shame. Craig Curtis has not had the best of second races, has he? But Josh Martin also hit the wall pretty hard, so you have to wonder whether he's maybe picked up some damage as well. So around the right-hand as we go at the start of the lap. Oliver Gibson and Josh Martin, by the way, Oliver Gibson and Smith, I should say, are now gaining ground. And interestingly, Smith is ahead of Gibson all of a sudden. So Smith into the top 10 now. Didn't see where he got past Gibson, but that could be a significant overtake. Do you think these two will work together now, Rich? Or, I mean, it's early in the season, isn't it? Oliver Gibson must feel he's got as much of an opportunity to win this championship as Jack Smith does, but they do work well generally together as a team.
They do indeed, and interestingly, they were in last week in our World Endurance League at Le Mans. They were 1 and 2, but we expected a showboat finish side by side, and we didn't get that because Oliver was saying that, you know, he wants to, I don't know, is the right way to say, step out of Jack's shadow and start to show his own performance. So they are racing.
Interesting. Okay, well, we're like a teammate rivalry, which spices things up a bit. They're both catching now the 9th place, which is Gillian Christian. And he's probably not going to make life too difficult. Hopefully not going to make life too difficult for Jack Smith, who's up the inside into the final chicane. Gibson, though, not really close enough to follow him through there, so he's going to have to try and forge his own way past the newbie. He was a bit sideways off the chicane, though. This is surely now going to be Oliver Gibson's chance. He's on the hybrid, hybrid. He had that extra bit of momentum. Will he now go around the outside into turn number 1? He's going to have to be very late on the brakes, and Gillian's not going to make it easy for him. No, round the outside goes Oliver Gibson, and that, Rich, takes quite a bit of bravery. To go around the outside at turn 1 is risky anyway, but to do it against a driver that Oliver won't have ever raced wheel to wheel with, you never quite know where you stand or what to expect from him.
Yeah, and look, Gillian's a great driver. He races trucks, so you know he's an experienced driver. But you're right, the outside of T1 has got that gravel trap there, so you only need to go a little bit wide, and it slows you down so much.
And it looks quite off camber as well, that first corner. I don't know if it feels that way from inside the car.
Yeah, do you know what? I threw a load of camber on the car, and it actually helped with going through that corner significantly. So yeah, it does. I do feel that it drops away. The track drops away.
Interesting. Okay, right. Joel Lask having a good run here. He's into the top 5. Andy Carroll also 6th. So Andy Carroll, under the radar maybe, has picked his way nicely through the pack. The trouble is that these two now both have Ben Smith behind. It's not going to be long, I don't think, before Ben Smith is troubling the top 5. The real question is whether or not he's going to be able to catch the front runners, because Nathan Smith is nearly 3 seconds clear of Dave Eastman, who is 4 seconds clear of Brad Smith in third position. So even if Ben Smith gets through this group quickly, he's going to have his work cut out to get onto the podium. Thomas Potter there at the inside picks up a place. That was 4th place that he just took, and Joel Lask now under a bit of threat from trying to reply, but I should say, to Thomas Potter. So actually, no, so I'm talking absolute nonsense. This is for 3rd place. I'll get there in a second. Brad Smith 3rd, ahead of Thomas Potter and Joel Lask. Rich, did you fancy taking over? I think you're better at this.
No, you're much more experienced at this than I am. Well, unless you want to take over producing the show, then yes.
That's not a good idea. Let's stick with our current job, shall we? Good battle list for 3rd position then, and Brad Smith doesn't look to have the pace of these two, and of course the effect that has is it bottles everybody up, and it's really just playing into the hands of Ben Smith, who's already cleared Andy Carroll just like that, and is setting off after them. Yeah,
and you're looking at just a hybrid activation. So looking at it from the top, Nathan's had 7, Dave Heasman's down to 5, Brad Smith's still got 10 left, Thomas has got 9, Joel Lask on 8, and Ben Smith's on 9. So Andy Carroll's had to use a few. He's down to 6 as well, so he's been on the hybrid. It's interesting then, using more hybrids by this stage of the race than he did in race 1, really. But I'm impressed with Brad Smith then, not using the hybrid and yet still defending this position. If you feel confident that you can defend without it, then it's worth doing, isn't it? Because then you inevitably save it for later in the race. But that's quite a risk to take, isn't it? Because it's so easy to then lose a position. Here comes Lask, meanwhile. That was a typical Joel Lask lunge. In fairness, Potter left the door open, but Joel Lask fully committed from quite a long way back. Yeah, he did well there, didn't he? And you look, just on the hybrid use, if I'm doing it, I kind of break down the number of laps that we're going to be doing, and kind of equally break out the number of activations I've got, and start on that, and then work my way around depending on what threats are coming along to how many I'm going to use. But I would tend to try and use fewer to start with and save them for defending towards the end of the race. Move of the night. But did you see that then at the inside of Thomas Potter and Joel Lask? He outlasts Joel there. That was a fantastic move. This man is here for the championship, isn't he, this season? Ben Smith into 4th position. He came from a different postcode there and passed 2 cars in one, and one of them was Joel Lask. I cannot stress enough how difficult it is to do that. That was incredible. That was impressive. This is where my commentary skills fail me, because I am speechless at that move. That was fantastic. Oh, to be fair, I'm struggling for words as well. That was phenomenal. But the point I was going to make when I next got the opportunity was that it's imperative that he got past people like Joel Lask, who you would expect to put up a fight as quickly as possible. Well, Joel didn't have the chance to put up a fight, really, did he? Already Ben Smith on the tail of Brad Smith, the 2 B Smiths. The sooner these two are separated on track, the better, for the sake of my headache. But I don't think it's going to be too long before it is Ben ahead of Brad. He's all over Brad, who is trying to close the door. That was a late move, and now forces Ben to the outside line. Will he go right round the outside? Sort of gets boxed out, actually. And now Joel Lask sees an opportunity to get the place back. Don't go 3 abreast. That's a terrible idea. On the hybrid, Ben Smith makes the move stick. Another terrific bit of racecraft. He might win this, Well, yes, I agree. There's 13 minutes left, Rich, and he's in 3rd position. To put this into perspective, Jack Smith is only 2nd, Oliver Gibson is only 9th, and he started behind both of them on the grid. So, truly incredible performance this. But, this is what I wanted to see from Ben. He's very quick in clean air, fine, great. We saw that in the Porsches, we saw that in race 1. It's a very different skill to then be able to pick your way through the carnage, and not only that, but make brilliant, decisive moves. He said on the first lap,
a lot of it's down to luck, but after that it's down to racecraft, and he has displayed plenty of fantastic racecraft. He seems really aware, doesn't he, of where to place the car and when.
I think his strategy is fantastic. He's clearly thinking about, what he's going to be doing 2 or 3 corners ahead when he's coming up to another car. So, and that move down the inside of 2 cars shows that.
Worth pointing out, though, I think, Rich, and Jack mentioned this actually in his interview, there is, of course, ballast on these cars. Now, this being the first round, we don't have championship ballast. It's just the driver ranking ballast, isn't it? But going into next week, presumably Ben Smith's going to be leading the championship. This car will suddenly get a bit heavier. Do you think that's going to be enough to close things up a bit?
For sure, yeah. Look, he will get 30 kilograms of championship ballast if he's leading the championship. And with 2 wins from 2 races, that'll affect his driver ranking as well. So he potentially will be look, the maximum's 50, which he won't be carrying the next round, but he'll definitely be heavier than he is now.
Normally we have a graphic that shows us, in fact we'll cover this in a minute, Ben Smith is about to take second place from Dave Heasman like candy from baby, slips up the inside and does claim second place. Oh dear, big snapping oversteer over the curb though. I thought he was about to throw it all away, but gathers it all together. Normally we have a graphic that explains who is carrying what ballast, and particularly driver ranking ballast, but haven't been sent one of those for this round, so sack the producer. What driver ranking ballast does Ben Smith carry?
Oh, you're asking me a question that I don't know. Bear with me, caller. I will come back to you.
Hold the line. Okay, let me know. Right, Ben Smith. Don't forget to keep directing the race as well, Rich, and also keep commentating. King of multitasking, you become doing something like this. Ben Smith. Now, can he catch Nathan Smith? He is well, when I started that sentence was 2.8 seconds behind. He's now 2 seconds behind. But I think Nathan got in the gravel coming out of turn 4. This gap is coming down by the metre. But Joel Lask doing his best to go with him as well. So Ben Smith, if he doesn't get past Nathan Smith quickly, Joel could be there for company as well.
So here's your answer. Ben is on 0 ballast.
Right, okay. Which goes some way towards explaining his performance. But, I mean, like I said, fast car or not, light car or not, you can tell that he knows what he's doing in it. You can give any driver a really good car. If they don't have the ability to maximise what they've got, then that's not quite the same thing, is it? But Ben Smith with no ballast, and at a track, Rich, where I would imagine carrying that extra weight makes quite a big difference because of all the stop-start and the acceleration zones uphill. That must be beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. The ballast definitely affects these cars when they accelerate out of the slow stuff, and we've got hairpin chicanes and 3 chicanes, so that will definitely be affecting it. So Jack shouldn't feel too bad because we know that he's a lot heavier than Ben, but that'll equal out next week.
His car is anyway, yes, virtual car is.
Virtual, yes.
Ben Smith, look at that 39.4. Nathan Smith in the 42s. I know he made a mistake, but driving under this sort of pressure, you can hardly blame him, really. Now, because I'm not a racing driver, and I'll be putting that indicator on and moving out of the way. If he comes over all defensive, it will cost him second place because Joel Lask will start taking time out of them, but it's a difficult thing to do when you're leading the race and you have been for a while to just pull over. But in the end, it's made easy because he made a mistake out of turn 4. Ben Smith's on the hybrid. Is he going to go around the outside? He's late on the brakes, but actually Nathan is standing his ground. Side by side they go. Sideways goes Nathan Smith. Around he goes. And for once, I'm proven instantly absolutely right. I just don't think that was worth the fight, Rich.
What are the lottery numbers for next week?
I mean, that was so unfortunate though for Nathan, but you could just see it coming, couldn't you? Nathan was an unstoppable force, and okay, it didn't work out exactly how I thought it would happen. I thought Joel would just catch them, but you go side by side through that chicane and you're flirting with disaster.
Yeah, I personally, look, I know Nathan and he's a good racer and he's a hard racer as well, so I didn't expect him to back out of it, but looking back on it, yeah, you probably should have backed out and let him through.
Now Nathan is where 9th after that, so any chance of a meaningful result gone. I mean, look, you don't get many opportunities to fight at the front of these races, I get it, but second place is better than 9th, so playing the percentages is boring, isn't it? We don't really want to see drivers do that, so maybe we should be commending him for getting his elbows out. Speaking of, here comes
Jack Smith.
Jack Smith into 3rd place now, ahead of one of the other Smiths, Brad Smith. 4th position. Can we please start a position to change their names? There are 5 on them, just not necessary. Anyway, Jack Smith into the podium places, so as frustrated as it'll be, Rich, that Ben Smith has disappeared up the road again. Jack is putting together a typical Jack Smith evening, isn't he?
He's doing great. Considering the amount of weight he's carrying, he's having a really good race. Do you want a quick update on hybrids?
Yeah.
So Ben's got 4, Joel's 2, Jack's 4, Brad's got 6, Dave Heisman's 0, Oliver's 5, Andy Carroll 4, Kenny Press has got 15 hybrids left.
There's a surprise.
So
Has he still not? He must have installed a hybrid button by now, surely.
I asked him in the driver briefing if he'd mapped his hybrid button to the steering wheel. He sent me a message. He didn't answer on voice. He sent me a message saying, I did map it, but I mapped DRS, not KERS. So he mapped the wrong thing. So
Oh, Kenny, we love you. We
Yeah,
really do.
we do.
He's hanging on to 11th. It's not a bad result. Oh, my word. That is a send, and that is Brad Smith on Jack Smith, who I thought was going to disappear having gained that place at the start of the lap, but certainly not. I think
Brad's on hybrid.
Brad he's been using some hybrid, hasn't he, to try and get back into the fight, but this is not going according to the script for Jack Smith, because he's now 4.7 seconds back from Joel Lask, and it's bringing Dave Heisman and perhaps more significantly Oliver Gibson and Andy Carroll back onto their tail.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, that's Oliver pulling out from behind. Dave's got no hybrid at all, so he's pretty much a sitting duck down any straights. It looks like Jack's pulling away now, doesn't it?
That shows the power of the hybrid. It's not a particularly long straight, really, and yet Oliver Gibson on the hybrid and Dave Heisman not on the hybrid. That was not even a contest, really. So Gibson into 5th, with Brad Smith, the Phoenix Sim Racing driver, his next target. It is Ben Smith who leads the way.
This one.
And Joel Lask in 2nd place. There we go. The red, white and blue one that leads by 3.7 seconds. I know we've explained a little bit in this race why he is so much quicker than everybody else and how that might well change next week, but still vitally impressive. It's been a long time, Rich. I'm guessing he's got fastest lap in this race. Yes, he has.
Yeah, looks like it, yeah.
Yes. And he scored fastest lap in race 1. Here's a question that I know you won't know the answer to, and I don't, in fairness. When was the last time a driver took maximum points away from a night of racing? It's been a while, I would think.
Yeah, do you know what? I can't remember.
No.
I actually can't remember, but, it's all I'd say is, Jack's sewing while the sun's out, isn't he? He's got no weight, and he's driving away from Joel, look.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, this is super, super impressive. We've still got 5 minutes to go, and his winning margin is likely going to be bigger than it was in race 1, and he started this one at the very back of the grid. Joel Lask in 2nd place, though, looks pretty secure. Jack Smith on this lap.
Yeah,
is he gaining or not?
Joel's got no hybrids left, Jack's got 3, so... previous lap, Jack was almost 2.5 seconds slower. Oh no, we've just gone over again. So yeah, Jack was a second quicker than Joel in the last lap.
So in theory, I know he's only got 3 hybrids left. So say he uses the hybrid once a lap from now to the flag, Jack Smith. How much time, if he executes that right, do you think that's worth roughly, as opposed to someone running without that?
If you on one straight, or an activation of the hybrid's worth about 0.4, 0.5 a second.
Okay, and he's 2 point something back, but perhaps a little bit quicker anyway. So this could be quite close, and you know that Joel Lask is going to put up a fight when Jack arrives in his mirrors. So this could be a pretty tasty battle for 2nd position. The gap is visibly coming down, but Jack Smith, I think, will be happy with 3rd place. Obviously, he's going to push and try and get 1 place higher if he can. But Jack is a driver who's not afraid to play the percentages and just bank whatever points he can get. Josh Martin, meanwhile, 7th place, good recovery drive this after his collision with Craig Curtis in the early stages. He's on the tail of Dave Heisman and Andy Carroll, so this is about to become a 3-way fight for 5th position. Heisman, in fairness, has not dropped like a stone in this race, has he? He made a bit of a mistake then, just as I started saying nice things about him, but Dave Heisman holding his own. Josh Martin wriggling through a gap that wasn't really there, but manages to get the place anyway. That was adventurous.
Yeah, oh dear.
Oh dear. Yeah,
oh dear.
That's a fair assessment. Again, I was just saying nice things about Dave Heisman, and he's run off and hid as well. He didn't slow down to let Josh Martin have that place again. He will argue, I guess, that Martin passed him off the track, but two wrongs don't, unfortunately.
No. I mean, look, Joel had 2 tyres off the track, so strictly speaking, he was still within track limits.
we're using sensible track limitations. I'm not familiar with those these days. Right, well, Josh Martin will be back on his tail again, so we'll get a rematch before too much longer. Josh not usually the kind of driver to hold a grudge, but that will have irked him a little bit, because I think probably now his chance of a top 5 is gone, would you say?
I don't know. He's got 2 activations left, and Dave's got 0, so I think he'll probably pull him in.
Oh, well, yes, for 6, but the point is they were on Carroll.
Sorry,
well,
correct,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, and Andy probably has now disappeared up the road again. Driver of the round, Rich, whilst we've got a bit of time before something else kicks off. I know I nominated Andy Carroll after race 1. Ben Smith is the obvious choice, although I do think that I'll be interested to see if he could do this again with some ballast on in a few weeks. So I think maybe my vote goes to Andy, you know.
Andy's had a solid second race. Really good drive back from pretty much the back of the grid in race 1. So, yeah, I think I'd agree with you on that.
All right, we'll see if anyone does something sensational in the last couple of minutes that changes our mind. But so far, Andy Carroll looking good for that prize. Thomas Potter just on the outside of the top 10. There's Gillian Christian side by side behind Chris Blakey and Paul Laramie. 2 real-life BMW racers, I seem to recall. And Paul Laramie getting the best of Blakey, but then runs wide. And Blakey again shown the edge of the road. That was uncharacteristically robust from Paul Laramie, I'd say. And now he's got trouble with around the outside.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Oh dear, they're 2x2 over the crest of the hill. Laramie somehow fighting back. They're 3 abreast. There's a bit of contact. Chris Blakey and Paul Laramie getting together nearly. Blakey goes straight on. Someone had to get fired off the road there, and in the end, it was the luckless Chris Blakey who lost out. That was a good example there, I think, of the nature of the racing on this track. Sometimes it's so narrow that if you get a bit tangled up with somebody, it can just bottle that whole group back together.
There we go. Josh Martin's taken Dave Heisman there. I just cut back to it just after the move was done. So, so what we're looking at now, he's got 4 seconds to catch up with Andy. I don't think he's going to do that. Andy's still got 2 hybrids left. Just looking at hybrids, Ben's down to 0, Gerald's down to 0, Jack and Oliver has still got 1 in hand each, and Andy Carroll's got 2.
Right, okay, so probably likely to stay pretty static now, you'd say, at the front of the field. Oliver Gibson on the previous lap did his personal best lap of the race. That's pretty impressive, this into the race. Likely hybrid use had something to do with that, but he's actually inching back towards his teammate Jack Smith, going to run out of time to do anything with him, of course, because it's the final lap, but maybe a signal of his intent. The fastest lap is a 39.0. set by Ben Smith, so Jack Smith, Oliver Gibson, sorry, still 4/10 or so away from that pace. But, well, what more can you say about Ben Smith? This has been simply the perfect season opener, and that is not a word that I use too frequently to describe a driver's performance. Often they will tell you there's something that they could have improved upon, but honestly, this has been flawless from Ben Smith. A victory from pole position in race 1, and now a win from the back in race 2. Maximum points from Zolder for Ben Smith. He'll carry some more ballast next time out. He'll arrive at that second round with a healthy championship lead. Joel Lask is second. Jack Smith comes home a solid 3rd, and will be second in the points, therefore, with Oliver Gibson 4th. And Andy Carroll, provisional driver of the round, comes home in 5th position. Josh Martin, a good recovery drive there as well, to 6th. With Dave Heisman 7th after their late collision. Thomas Potter, I think, is going to hang on to 8th position. He's only half a second clear of Scott Bugner, who actually has just lost out to Nathan Smith at the last corner. So Thomas Potter goes 8th, Nathan Smith 9th, and Scott Bugner 10th in the end, as Thomas Potter, well, at least he's gone off after the checkered flag, not before it, and hangs on to 8th position. So a brilliant second race, an incredible performance from Ben Smith. I'm going to have to think of a few more questions to ask him now, because we'll hear from our podium finishers in just a few minutes' time.
And you're live.
Welcome back, everybody, to the VRRC BMW Cup. Race 2 is in the books, and it finished with a very familiar look, at least to the top step of the podium, but plenty of action along the way. And here to describe their part in it are our top 3 drivers from our second race. I'm going to start with our third place finisher, one step lower on the podium this time than in race 1, but some more good points scored for Jack Smith, who I'm sure is pretty satisfied with a third place finish. Jack, well done on the podium once again. And normally we'd be saying, actually, on a reverse grid, on a track like this with so many cars and so much drama in the early stages, that getting to third would be a pretty satisfying result. But that Ben bloke, he managed to get a few places ahead of you at the start, and from there, really, I think just getting on the podium was just going to be a satisfying result for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I said it before the race, and I must have jinxed myself. Yeah, starts, I think it's just weak point there, so I'm probably going to work on them for next race. But yeah, I just got a bit unlucky with traffic throughout the race. I think Ben managed to get some double overtakes, which that once he overtook Joel, I think that was it. I knew from that point I'm not going to be able to catch up for the win. So yeah, I saw that happen, and I was like, okay, and I just need to focus on getting a podium at least, and then getting some good points back. So yeah, that was my mindset. Really, just trying not to cut. I think I only had one cut this time, and that was when we were 3 wide going into the chicane. I was like, this is never going to work. So I backed out, and then everyone sort of backed out at the same time. So yeah, that didn't go to plan either. So it's just stuff like that that sort of pushed me a bit further back from where I'd really like to be. So yeah, but that's racing, isn't it? So yeah, but not too bad. Not too bad.
Solid first round then, with a second and a third place. We now head to Mugello, completely different track, and one that I reckon is probably going to prove a bit more popular, but requires a very different driving style. So lots of practice laps to be put in before next week.
Yeah, I like Mugello. It's got a nice flow to it. So yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely going to do a bit more practice, especially with bits you don't normally think about. So like actually running race fuel and doing starts properly, and making sure you don't put 15 more liters than you need in the car and stuff like that. So yeah, gonna look forward to it. I think I'm gonna prefer it a lot more to Zolder, because the chat limits might be a bit nicer. Don't have to worry about them as much as here. Although I'm sure Rich will make sure everyone's adhering to them. But yeah, it should be good. Should be good.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on a solid start to the season. I reckon you'll be second in the points after that. So not a bad start. Certainly something you can build on going forward. Well done, Jack.
Cool. Cheers, Andy.
So third place finish for Jack Smith. Second place on the podium for the first time tonight, Joel Lask. And Joel, that was a pretty good race, really, wasn't it? You made some good moves there in the early stages to get to the front. And actually, the race ended pretty calmly for you. You had that nice little gap over Jack, and seemed to manage it well. Oh, hello, Jack. There we go. Jack,
sorry,
Joel, even.
I like the
Joel.
enthusiasm, but yeah, that was a little bit and an ahhing towards the end. I didn't know how many push to pass Jack had left, and that was a worrying thing. And I'd used all mine. I made a few mistakes and stuff like that, so I had to catch back up. But yeah, luckily I think one more lap he probably would have had me. But yeah, I know it was good.
You had it all under control. We can tell just from watching you, Joel. Talk us through the early stages, though, because there was a lot of talk tonight about how narrow this track is. It's difficult to go side by side, but you have no choice, really, do you? In the early stages, you've got to just find the gaps, and you're normally pretty good at finding those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't expecting to make the way through the pack as quickly as I did. I think, to be fair, like you say, it is a very narrow track, so you've got to kind of just make the moves when you can and try and catch people off guard. Which I think I did a couple of times, which was quite nice. But it was nice to get a feel for the car in the second race. The first race just wasn't really there for me. Yeah, just getting used to this hybrid activations again. But yeah, definitely happy with the second one.
Apart from the hybrid, which obviously we are all sort of trying to get used to again, how are you finding the car? Everyone's been raving about it, saying that it is great to drive. Are there any little quirks that you're still trying to wrap your head around?
No, to be fair, it's a great car. I just didn't get any practice in before the race, which is a bit unlike me. Normally, I'm doing hundreds of laps, so it definitely showed, especially in that first race and in quali. But just gonna have to put lots of practice in for Mugello. Obviously, Ben's incredibly quick, and he was untouchable tonight. I thought maybe he'd used all his activations, but it seems like that probably wasn't the case. And then I've got Jack and Ollie to contend with too. So yeah, there's a fair few drivers that are in the running for this championship, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be very entertaining to watch, that's for sure. We expect you to be in the thick of the action, though, as always, Joel, and we look forward to seeing how you get on through the rest of the season. But for now, congratulations on that first podium.
Cheers, Andy.
And just like that, we are back with our double race winner, Ben Smith. I was asking Rich during that race, Ben, when the last time was that we had a driver who scored maximum points across a night. He couldn't remember, and to be fair, that can be applied to many things with Rich, but I think that probably would have stuck in his memory if it had happened more than once. So a very rare achievement, Ben. You've got to be mighty proud with what you've achieved tonight.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I made up, I don't even know how many positions on the first lap, maybe 10, more than that. I went around the outside on turn 1 and got lucky. There was smoke absolutely everywhere. But somehow I managed to skate my way through and yeah, managed to get to the front in the end.
I mean, you make that sound a lot easier than I'm sure it was. We were discussing in the race, obviously you are quite light, you've got no ballast on the car, we know that that's going to be a bit of a benefit around here, but your racecraft was fantastic. There was one move in particular that had both me and Rich completely speechless, which was the double overtake into turn 1. The second of the drivers you overtook was Joel Lask, who we know is very difficult to pass, but you came from so far back and just sailed up the inside of both of them and got the car stopped for the corner. So you've obviously got a lot of confidence in the car on all areas, really, not only on traction coming off the corners, but under braking as well.
Yeah, I think I've got to say thanks to Push to Pass for that one. But yeah, I mean, I just absolutely love how you can just throw this car in. I've never felt at any point like I'm going to lose it, to be honest. I think it's just such a intuitive car to drive and it really suits me.
Always too keen to put yourself down. Push past helps you down the straight, but you did a lot of that work under braking as well. Believe me, that was very, very impressive. We certainly enjoyed the move. Let's talk about next week. We head to Mugello, very different kind of track, but another quite undulating circuit, much more flowing and smooth, requires a very different driving style. Do you think that's going to suit you? And also, how do you think this ballast is now going to play into things? Because inevitably it will slow you down a little bit, at least that's the theory.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll make a difference. I imagine I'll be similar to Jack after this one, so that'll be interesting when we're on sort of exactly the same car, how it seems to go. But Mugello's a track I really like, to be fair. Nice and flowing, undulation. You know, you can't go wrong, really, can you?
It is a classic. It's definitely a classic. Always produces good racing as well, so we're looking forward to it, Ben. You will go there as the championship leader after a maximum points score here at Zolder. Huge congratulations for us all, Ben, and yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Looking forward to it. See you then.
Now, it would have been far too obvious to give Ben the Driver of the Round award, so we're going to save that perhaps for another day later on in the season, and instead it is making its way to Andy Carroll, because Andy, we chatted to you briefly earlier on about race 1. Obviously that didn't quite go to plan, but it was a terrific fight back through the field, and then of course you kind of had it all to do again in race 2. You were able to get back, I think, into the top 5 by the end, and so that is why the Driver of the Round award is heading your way, which I think is a fair reward, really, after what's been a busy evening for you.
Thank you, guys. That's really appreciated. That was, yeah, thank you. That was a much more difficult race in terms of, you know, I was able to get through the first sort of dozen or so fairly quickly, but then it was kind of trying to find a way past, I think it was Dave and Brad and Kenny at one point, and of course while you're trying to do that, you've got you see the names like Joel appearing on the drivers behind you, and then came Ben and Jack and Ollie, and I was like, well, yeah, it's not. I think I was on my limit of cuts with about 6 or 7 minutes still to go, so it was kind of at that point was just kind of trying to make sure I didn't do anything silly and get a drive through. But yeah, I was, you know, with that list of names, I think you're always going to be happy if you're in the top 5, because, you know, as we've seen, the two Smiths are always going to be up there. And obviously we've got Joel, who, you know, has been quick for a number of championships now and won the minis, and we know Oliver's quick as well from other series. So yeah, to kind of, it is kind of a best of the rest kind of battle for a lot of us now with those guys. So yeah, no, it was really really pleased to be able to fight back in that first race, and yeah, to follow it up with kind of a top 5 as well. It was yeah, good evening's work. Quite happy with that.
So you should be, absolutely not bad at all, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Actually, I think you might just have the pace to steal a few more good results as the season goes on. So we'll watch with interest to see how you get on, Andy. But congratulations on the Driver of the Round award. Well done on those two brilliant fight backs through the field, and we'll see you next week at Mugello.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.
So that is our first set of races done, and well, it's been a brilliant start to the season, hasn't it? We'll bring Rich Hayden back in again for some summary thoughts and an opportunity to look ahead to next week at Mugello, where I think we're going to see a very different style of racing, and once that championship success balance starts to get applied, perhaps a slightly different look to the order at the front as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week. I mean, look, this was a difficult round for a few people. The track limits did cause a few issues for a few people. It is a tight track as well, but on the whole, I think the driving standards were really good this evening. There's a lot of new drivers in there, new car, new track, fairly tight track. Yeah, obviously, we'll go through it in detail on Monday night in the debrief, and we'll see if we get any incidents posted from drivers for us to go to. But Mugello is such a fantastic flowing track with a super long straight that is really gonna show us some good slipstreaming with the hybrid system as well. So yeah, it's going to be really good next week.
Looking forward to it. Well, Rich, thanks very much for your help tonight. I believe we will have Jack back.
Yeah. No, it's Jack still on holiday. It's Richard John Neal next week with you.
Okay. Well, that's. I mean, obviously sad Jack's not here, but very much looking forward to having Rich back in the box again. And quite frankly, going on holiday is simply unacceptable. As we've always said, the VRRC should come first. Anyway, without further ado, we'll leave you all to enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed the opening rounds of the VRRC BMW Cup. It certainly set us up for an intriguing season. And we'll be back for Chapter 2 next week.
Woo!